Hello, after a brief holiday, the GotAUkulele reviews are back. And as always, this is just a summary video review. Linked below every video is a link to the original written review where you'll get a lot more information. There's also a link there to the Patreon if you want to help donate to keep this site going. And also why not subscribe to the channel. Okay, this brand, it's a brand I've featured before. It's a brand that's very well known in musical instrument circles. They're a US brand who, with the exception of one or two higher end examples, mainly make instruments in the Far East. And they're perhaps most famous for their guitars, and their Spanish guitars in particular. But they've actually made ukuleles for quite a number of years now, and I know a lot of people who've got them, a lot of people who like them. The brand is called Cordoba. And this is the Cordoba 15cm concert. Now, Cordoba, I've featured a couple of them before. I've never liked what I've played. I've played a few others as well. I found that they've always been a little bit dead, a bit heavy, a bit sort of constrained, strangled. Very well made. Clearly an instrument maker that knows how to make an instrument because of their guitar pedigree, but I've not been impressed by their ukes. Anyway, wanted to have a look at this one. This is the 15cm. It's not quite the lowest level. They have a Protege series, which I looked at, which is their entry level, but this is their sort of main level, equivalent to sort of entry level Carlas and Lanikais and things like that. And in fact, that look, it's a double bout concert shape, but it is very reminiscent of the Carla KAC and the now discontinued Lanikai LU21 concert, because it's an all laminate concert body with this cream edge binding finished in a satin. From a distance, those three instruments, if they were played on a stage, I suspect people wouldn't tell the difference between them. And in fact, the construction is pretty much identical. Laminate body, couple of pieces on the top, couple of pieces on the sides, couple of pieces on this flat back. But it's laminate mahogany. Cordoba on their website list it as layered. What is it with brands that have an aversion to using the word laminate? Don't be afraid of it. Just tell us what it is. It's laminate. It's laminate mahogany in satin. And you know what? Like other Cordobas, it's well put together. It's really nicely finished. I can't find any flaws with it at all. The cream really sets it off, I think. A difference from the Carla KAC is that you get this sound hole rosette in abalone, which is inlaid. Yeah, it's pretty, but I think it jars. I think I'd rather it was cream to match the cream, or that the bounding was abalone to match the sound hole. I don't like mixing design cues like that. Minor point of mine. The bridge wood is unspecified. It looks like a stained hardwood to me. It could be rosewood, could be walnut, could be anything really because it's painted. But it's a standard tie bar design holding a composite, new bone, that kind of material, flat topped saddle. It's in good shape actually. It looks really nice. Yeah, no problems there at all. Looking inside, tidy, no mess, glue, shavings, that kind of thing, but very basic. The back bracing looks a bit thick. The edge, the curvings that hold the top and the back on are not notched. I mean, they're not complaints, but it's just really simple inside. But what it also shows me is that top is ultra thick. Now, often, not always, but often, that means it's going to strangle the instrument, and maybe that's been the problem with Cordobas in the past. But I say not always. That Takamine I looked at last had a really nice resonant tone, and actually, so's this. This is a drum-like top, despite that thick top. So maybe things will be okay here. The neck is made of mahogany with a really obvious joints. I only mention the joints. There's no problem with joints in the neck. And in fact, some of the very best ukuleles have well hidden joints. I just don't like them when they're really obvious. You've got this sort of three-piece stacked heel here and a horrible joint that's obvious there. Finished in the same satin. It's a really rounded profile. It's that typical Far Eastern profile, which I know I'm not going to like, and I'm not going to like it. It's got an average 35mm nut, 26 from G to A string. It's just not for me, that kind of neck. I like them wider and flatter. But it's fairly standard. It's a personal point, not a criticism. That's topped in another dark wood fingerboard, maybe rosewood, don't know what it is, they don't specify. And it's nicely edge bound. That's another departure from the KAC. That's a nice addition. I think that looks classy. I think it looks nice. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14 to the body, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 in total. Then there's no sharp edges because of that edge binding. Position markers at 5, 7, 10 and 12, and thankfully you get black dots on the side, which you don't get on their value protege. Not my kind of neck, but it's tidy. The headstock, it's the Cordoba shape that they always use, very reminiscent of Canalea's shape, actually, dare I say it. Cordoba logo there in a gold screen print. The tuners, Cordoba always use these, even on their higher end ones. They're massive buttons on cheap open gears. They're horrible. They're really awful. They look ugly as hell. You know, the Carla KAC uses smaller buttons on nicer tuners up there, I believe. They're a real letdown, I think. The strings are Aquila. No, you don't get anything else with it. And the price, an RRP of about $135, but you'll see them on the street for about $100, £100 in the UK. That may sound like a decent deal for a serious beginner instrument. It might do, but I'll come on to that price towards the end of this video, and I'll talk about it in the written review. But as I say, it's really well put together, actually. It's nicely finished. Unlike other Cordobas, it's not heavy. It's nice and light, and it's nice and balanced as well. So there's a couple of things that they've not done before on instruments that I've looked at. As I say, nice and resonant. I don't like the neck. I don't like those tuners. But other than that, it's pretty standard, and it's pretty reliable. I think it'll suit a lot of people. And there was me talking about them sounding a bit muffled, a bit dead, a bit strangled. I'm going to tune it because this is a newish instrument and the strings are still going out. But what it has is really good volume. You know, the volume, as you can probably tell, it's got a real boom. Yeah, volume is not a problem here. And the sustain isn't bad. It's not brilliant, but it's not bad. It's not totally staccato. So that gives a bit more versatility to how it will play. The tone is generic. It's a box made of laminate wood, and it also sounds a bit echoey, boxy sounding. However, it sounds like a huge criticism because lots of cheap instruments sound like that. As laminate bodied instruments goes, I think the tone on this is up there at the top end. It's got a nice jangle to it. I just don't like this neck. That's really passable. First Cordoba I've played that I think that about. It's not going to change the world on tone, but it works. The setup's pretty decent. Okay, aside from that net, but that's my big flabby hands. It's a nice chimey tone, brighter than I thought it would be. That's nice. So I know who this is aimed at. It's aimed at either the first timer who's got a bit more money and decides he really definitely wants to learn the ukulele, or perhaps a beginner who started out with some 20 quid junk and says, no, I'll get a more serious one, and wants to spend about 100 quid. And it's absolutely right for those people. My issue, though, as I touched on earlier, is with the price. Because at £100, you've got to look at what the alternatives are. And I look at something like the Carla KAC, which is pretty much identical as an instrument. It doesn't have abalone here. It doesn't have binding on the neck. That's the only difference. And if you shop around with the Carla KAC, you can find it for 75 quid. I'd buy that and pocket the change and buy myself a pack of strings and a coffee. rather than the £100 on this, because they're pretty much the same thing. Still, if you find one of these on a decent deal, or you've got one of these, I would not be ashamed of it at all, because as a good, as I say, serious beginner instrument, it's decent. It's a good little laminate concert ukulele. It's well made. It's well finished. It sounds nice. It's got that chimey tone. It's got great volume, decent enough sustain, and I suppose £100 isn't a huge amount of money. So it gets a recommendation from me, but subject to you just shopping around on prices, because if you can't get this, if you've got this in front of you and a Carla KAC for £75, I'd get the Carla. But if this is the only thing that's in your local shop compared to some other junk, yeah, decent instrument. Sorry, my voice is going. The Cordoba 15cm concert. Yeah, not bad at all, really. And nice to play a Cordoba at last that I really rather liked. I'm back next week. The reviews are going to keep coming now. No more holidays planned, I don't think, till about Christmas. But there we are. Thank you for watching, and take care of yourselves. I will see you again very, very soon. Bye-bye.